Hey, Bobby Manning here. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the Garden Report. We are hours from the NBA draft, and we're continuing to try to piece it all together, see what could happen here. It's going to be a crazy one. Matt Powers is here with us,
Yeah.
and we don't know who's going to be there at 30 for the Celtics at this point. But the good news is I don't even think anyone knows who's going number one in this draft 100% yet. So this could be one of the crazier draft nights in terms of movement, Matt, in terms of surprises, guys going in different spots where you might not expect them to. What's it just been like trying to figure out this class? Because it's been one of the more complicated or confusing ones I think that we've seen in a while.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun in my opinion. I love not having a consensus number one. Again, like reminds you of like the Anthony Edwards draft where like I feel like it really proves you as an evaluator whether you can like handle not having consensus to rely on. You have to like really sort through the tape a lot. And yeah, it's been fun. It's I think a particularly like flat draft in particular. And there's like some kind of mixed opinions about how much depth there is, but I definitely think there are some interesting prospects for the Celtics still, despite it being kind of a weaker draft.
Yeah, I guess that's the hope is that there might be some deeper guys who follow through, some underrated options at that spot at 30. 30's tough. It's always a tough spot, and we'll see if the Celtics even stay in the first round here tonight. But let's go to the top first. Seems like Risa Shea has the momentum to go number one here to Atlanta. Is that what you're expecting at this point?
I think it's like totally wide open still. I mean, that's where
Yeah.
like most of the smoke is going, but like I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to trade down a few spots and grab Klingon, or like somebody traded up to get Alex Sarr. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if like Reed Shepard went first, honestly. Like, I think it's that kind of open at the top where I don't think Risa Shea is like that compelling. I'm like much lower on him personally. So I imagine there's mixed opinions on him as well in the league. Yeah.
Who do you like to the Wizards at number two at that point?
Yeah. So, I mean, if Alex Sarr is there, I imagine they don't think twice about it and take him just because he's like the most exciting name up there. So I imagine Risa Shea is most likely still to go number one, Alex Sarr number two. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of momentum for Reed Shepard number three to Houston. I think that seems like pretty likely. He kind of like fits an important like need is just kind of like a glue guy there among their like budding young stars. So yeah.
Yeah, and as Windhorse was saying this morning, Klingon goes three. That's where you're like, ooh, what's going on in Houston based on some of the trades
Yeah.
that went through last night and some Durant rumors going on there. So that's where things could really get exciting. But Shepard's a really fun prospect. That's a guy probably in like my top 3-4 that I'm excited to see. This class. Spurs at 4. Maybe Castle. They need a point guard. I think that would make some sense there. Anyone in particular there you're hot on?
Yeah, it seems like they would take Castle. It just seems like such a like Spursy pick. I am like definitely a little more pessimistic on him as well. Is like I don't know if he'll be able to truly play point guard as he like wants to. Like he's kind of like the wing, like the guard wing version of Jeremy Sohan in a lot of ways, where he's like really smart defender, and like he's a good passer, maybe can run some pick and roll, but like the lack of an outside shot is not something I would love to pair around Wimby. I'd just prefer to keep some options open, but it does seem like that's who they're pretty focused on at 4. And like,
And they have 8 as well, which we'll get to. Pistons, who do you think's a good fit there?
It seems like a lot of people talking about Matas Buzelis there, which is like if you expect him to shoot, he kind of struggled with outside shot. I think he's below 30% from 3 in the G League, but he shot a lot better in high school. So if they can get like a reliable spacer who can provide some like help side rim protection, help out Durant on defense a little bit, that makes sense to me, I think. Yeah.
Hornets. Number 6.
Let's see. So yeah, I'm pulling up the Bleacher Report mock that just updated. They have Klingon going 6 to the Hornets, which would kind of I don't know if that would make sense with Mark. I have no idea what they're gonna do. Yeah, I don't know. I could honestly, I'm a really big Devin Carter fan, and there's been a lot of noise about him in the lottery. I think that would be an interesting, a little bit of a reach as far as where his like value is. But I love his game. He's a really tough defender. He's someone that would fit next to LaMelo pretty well. But I'd be surprised if Klingon fell out of this top 6 range. So I'd imagine he's off the board at some point.
Yeah, this is a really interesting territory here because there's some teams in this mix here that have centers. You mentioned Williams, you mentioned the Blazers at number 7. They already have Ayton. They have Robert Williams there right now. So are they a Klingon team? And then Spurs, of course, have Wembanyama. So is he going to be playing next to a bigger center? That would probably be the most intriguing Klingon team at that point. Who do you think's good at 7 to Portland? Because they have just an array of players across the board. So I think they're just probably taking whoever the best guy is
best
left
available,
there.
for sure. I'm personally very, very high on Zach Edey. He's actually my controversial number 1 pick. So if you want to get someone who can set big screens for Scoot Henderson, because that's something that Aiden doesn't really do, and just get Scoot some more space to operate and get some major rim pressure from him too. I think that would be interesting. But yeah, I think whoever they have highest on their board, they should just swing with.
Yeah, and then you get the Spurs. Will they stay in that spot? Will they move? That's going to be an interesting question at that point. You got Cody Williams at that spot, Dillingham, maybe Carter if he's still available, Topic, who's of course got the ACL injury there. Who's kind of next in your mind at 8?
I'd be really interested in Ron Holland's fit there.
Yeah.
Also kind of not the most high quality shooter, obviously, but he provides so much rim pressure. I really like the idea of pairing Wemby with just speed and just people who can pressure the rim constantly. So I think he'd be a really strong fit. I think Rob Dillingham would be a lot of fun here too. Yeah, just get him some players that can get their feet into the paint, basically.
9 is Memphis. Don't really know what they need. They pretty much have players across the positions. Klingon would be interesting here, of course. They need to replace Steven Adams, I think, and try to get back to some of that dynamic they had with the 2 bigs there. So that's who I would love to see here. Hard to imagine he'd still be there at that point, just given some of the hype around him. ESPN's got Cody Williams here. Obviously, Carter's in this range. Dillingham again. Who out of that group, if Holland's going to San Antonio, let's say, you like at Memphis?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see them trade. They would have to trade up to get Donovan Klingon, but that's a perfect spot there. I think, again, on my ED kick, I think there's a small that's a perfect fit for him in Memphis, just having the defenders around him already. But yeah, I think it's whoever from that top tier falls down, they can swing with. Yeah, again, another decent Ron Holland fit because his energy coming off the bench would be really special for them, I think. But yeah, I could see Cody Williams if they just want to swing on the tools. Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting options. I think the board's gonna be pretty messy by this point already.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, we're already at that point. Utah, wing, guard. There's even Walker Kessler. They're going to hold on to him. So they could pretty much go in any direction here. As you mentioned, this is where it could really get wild. We haven't mentioned Connect from Tennessee. If they want to keep stacking wings there, that's an option. Dillingham, of course, if they want to go in the guard direction. Topic maybe at this point if they just want to have a guy, behind George. And he's probably one of the more bankable prospects they have there at this point. We'll see how long Markkanen hangs on there at that point. Anyone stick out here to you?
Yeah, Topic would be really interesting.
I think they have the patience to wait on him.
Yeah. I think he can play together with Keontae too, where they can both kind of switch off ball, and they have kind of very different strengths in different ways.
Bulls at 11.
So there's the rumor that that's where Devin Carter was promised, which would be a fun fit with Alex Caruso out of there, somebody who can pull up from deep, is really improved jump shot, very useful defender, switchable defender, just a good basketball player, someone that they can use,
Thunder at 12 is interesting. We'll see if they stay. It's still surprising they didn't have to move this or any of their picks for
Yeah.
Caruso, but they could get another young piece here. Of course, Cody Williams would be fun, pairing alongside his brother there. I think guard probably their best bet, but they could go anywhere here, really.
Yeah. I think Khalil Ware is like an interesting guy for them, who's just like super talented, kind of still like has his limitations on defense. Like he gets like
I
lost
love
a little
him.
bit here and there, but he can like, I really trust his shot. He's like a really good, like he destroyed the combine athletic testing. He seems like someone like really long wingspan that the Thunder would love to like help stretch the floor also.
Yeah, that's one of those guys for Boston. It's like dream scenario. You get that kind of guy, but hard to imagine him staying past the lottery even at this
He's
point.
got the outline of he's got the outline of Porzingis a little bit there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the lob threat and all of that. He's one of my favorite guys in this draft too. And those kind of guys have worked out the last handful of drafts here. The rim runners, and he's even willing to take some threes, as you mentioned there. So look out if the Thunder get him. Kings.
Oof. I would love a wing for them. Again, this is like if Ron Holland somewhere falls down this far. I know I like keep repeating him, but
that would be shocking.
Just a fun like defensive player for them to build around. Shoot, I don't know who. I mean, I think Tyler Smith could be interesting. That'd be kind of like a little early compared to his draft range, but I'm like super high on him. Just someone who can like space the floor a little bit, play inside a little bit, maybe provide some rim protection. He like had decent passing stats, so he's not like a total ball stopper. One of the Ignite guys, basically for them.
Yeah, and then the Blazers come up again. Again, wing maybe here. Big man, tough to imagine.
Yeah. I think if like Connect fell maybe would be a fun one. Just like another NBA ready guy who can again give Scoot some room. Like if they're sticking with Scoot, right, as like their building block that they're building everything around, give him like a really good spacer. I see like Tristan da Silva mock to him. That's a little early for me, but I like the idea of just like a really good spacer for them at this point.
Yep, and a lot of interesting wings. A lot of 6'5", 6'6" kind of guys in this draft. They'll be interesting for teams like that. Jeremy Grant's there. How long is he going to stay there? It's a question, but I do think that's a good position of need for them, and that position every team needs across the league. The Heat, they always seem to nail these picks mid-round. So it'll be interesting to see who they go with here. They'll probably have someone in mind that they really love.
Yeah, I would love to see Isaiah Collier there, actually. I think he's a really tough player. He can like fit into I think he's like pretty underrated as a defender too. Like someone that you can slot in pretty quickly to give you a ton of rim pressure. Like he's a really like unbelievably quick, very strong. I just think they would like transform his game in an interesting way, basically.
16 is Philly.
Yeah, I think one of the like young shooting prospects could be interesting just to try to get a long-term maxi pairing. So you could go like either Bub Carrington or Jared McCain would be interesting, I think, just as like elite shooting young players with like kind of different shooting skill sets, but both like really good in different ways.
17's LA. Seems like they're going to stay here. Could go for some big depth. Could go for some creators. Gabe Vincent, that didn't really work out last year, nor did Hood Schifino, so they can stay patient with him or try again here. Yeah,
I mean, one last Zach Edey mentioned, but I like hearing a lot of rumors like him as like a backup big to just relieve Anthony Davis here and there would be fun. Again, if Ware happens to fall here, just to give them some more big depth, I think that would be a really good fit. So,
Magic at 18. A lot of guards here. Could still use some more. Maybe Markelle Fultz gets away. Big man depth. Mo Wagner's a free agent. We'll see if he sticks around. That's potential here as well. Anyone in particular?
I'm not as like crazy about this spot for them. I mean, again, if like Bub happens to like fall to them, but I think they need like game ready like shooters basically. Like Jet Howard still seems to be taking a little while to
Yep.
come around. So again, like a Jared McCain, Bub Carrington type, just like get your shooting, outside shooting fixed. See if one of those guys works out.
That's the way the Raptors went last year with Grady Dick. We'll see what they do this time around. 4 spot maybe could use some help. It's interesting. You probably want to put a raw shooting around Scotty Barnes, so you can't go wrong with another shooting wing here, I would think.
Yeah, there's a reason like that. Like Tristan da Silva is being mocked in the first round so much, even though he like wasn't the most productive all-around player. He's just like a hell of an outside shooter at 6'9". Can take like no load threes. He's like somebody just provides that instant spacing for them. I'm a bit lower on him, but I think he'd be a really good fit with the Raptors.
So we move to 20 Cavs. I don't think we mentioned George. You know, maybe you end up seeing Garland go out the door here, and they need another guard to come up the mix there. You know, that's where you maybe mention McCain again, Carrington, Walter. We haven't really mentioned. They've needed a wing for a long time. We'll see how long they keep rolling with Okoro here. So winger guard seems like the move here.
Yeah, I think someone that might be a little bit of a reach based on where they're being mocked, but I think would fit in really well and play like immediately well there would be KJ Simpson from Colorado. He's just a really good on-ball and off-ball player, so like gives them flexibility as like he's a perfect 6-man. I think he's a really good scorer, hangs in defensively, is like a good vertical athlete. Just someone you can slot next to Garland or Donovan Mitchell and like be successful, I think.
This is where it starts to get a little more clear again. The middle of the first is going to be pretty wacky from like 10 to 20. New Orleans, 21. Valanciunas seems like he's out the door here, so they're probably going to need a center. Maybe it's Missy there from Baylor. Maybe if Ware's still there at that point, you go with him. But that seems like their biggest need in terms of development. Holmes around this range too, it seems like.
Yeah, I love Daron Holmes. He's someone is like a bit of a tweener between power forward and center, but also is like probably the most versatile big in the class. So you can kind of like, again, gives you that flexibility. Missy seems like a popular option. I think he's kind of like really raw and not really ready to contribute very quickly. Kyle Filipowski would be another good like depth option among bigs for them.
22. I don't think any team needs to nail their late first more than Phoenix. And get a guy who's ready to contribute there. Maybe you look at some of those wings we've tossed around. Walter at this point, maybe. Ryan Dunn seemed to slate into this range on a lot of boards. Anyone stand out that would fit well in Phoenix?
I think Baylor Shireman could be a really nice immediate fit. Just like
shooting,
the most bankable shooting. Can hang in decently defensively. Let's see who else. I'm a really big Terrence Shannon Jr. fan. Just like he's like such a great athlete. He's like already one of the most productive like college players. I think he would fit in really well.
Bucks, a lot of buzz that they could move Lopez here and try to improve through that means. That would open up certainly a need at big. A lot of buzz Filipowski here. The shooting next to Giannis and size. They love playing double big. That one makes some sense to me. Seems like a guy who's a little more ready than some of the other guys in this range too to step right in and contribute right away. And that's what they need in Milwaukee.
Yeah. I really like Johnny Furphy as an option too. He's like, I think he's ready to be a spot up and cutter guy who like, he won't get destroyed on defense. Like he's got some decent size. And he's still young enough that he has some upside left and like maybe can handle some ball handling reps down the road, but right now can be a pretty immediate like spot up guy, I think.
Then we get the back-to-back Knicks picks, some Dunn buzz here. I think we still have George on the board here. They got their wings certainly here, so maybe they're looking at big if Hartenstein's out the door. Guard depth, always something teams need. So they could go in a bunch of different directions here. It's actually hard. I guess if a couple guys go out the door here after that trade, they're going to need some younger, cheaper guys. So they could use both of their picks. Are there two guys here that stand out?
Yeah, Ryan Dunn comes up a lot for them. I don't know if his like offense is ready to fit into the Knicks system, but he's like a hell of a defender. He's like one of the best defensive wings I think he's the best defensive wing I've
It's
scouted.
it's hard to
Um,
see him getting past these two picks.
yeah, yeah.
Just
And just to throw out a name that's like, or a couple names that are out of left field that I think they could take a little early would be Nikola Jerusic. He was Nikola Topic's teammate. Just like a really smart player, like versatile, really good passer, can like really good driver, tough defender. I think he could fit in well. And also Tristan Newton from UConn. I think some team could like reach on him just because he's so NBA ready and he's got decent size, like good shot maker. I think I wouldn't be surprised if like him or Cam Spencer, as far as UConn guys, like one of them went way early than expected, just because you have that availability of like, oh, we saw exactly what it looks like for them to perform at a high level.
this feels like some more center range here, depending on who's left. Wizards, they got their couple wings. Koulibaly, Sarr probably going there. Guard, you could use some upgrade here too. I think this is a good guard range too for them. So you have to think guard or big here. They have a lot of wings already that they're trying to give minutes to.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, a good like Shannon spot, good Dayron Holmes spot, good Filipowski spot. Like whoever, I would just take whoever falls. Yeah.
Minnesota at 27.
I've heard a lot of people like the KJ Simpson fit here. Again, that might be a little early to take him, but to give them that like backup guard flexibility would be really nice. I see Johnny Furphy mocked to them by Bleacher Report, which another like player that's pretty ready to play, but also has that upside. They've been pretty smart with their draft picks in general, so I don't know. I'm really curious who they take here.
28. A lot of Holmes buzz here if he's still there for Denver at this point.
Yeah.
Need the big depth behind Jokic. She can't be playing him 48 minutes a night.
Yeah, that's the perfect fit for them. Someone that can like move a little bit outside the perimeter, can space the floor some, can maybe give you some backup center reps. I think I really like Daron.
Dylan Jones would be interesting there too. Just a guy who does a little bit of everything at the wing spot. You know, maybe another attempt to replace Bruce Brown there. So that's another one I'll toss out there. 29, Utah. They could go in a million different directions again here. They'll just take whoever.
Yeah. It's tough to predict this one. I could see them taking Pacom Dadier, the like young French player, who's another like floor spacing wing, big wing, who has some like finishing upside, just swing on talent basically.
Yeah, and that brings us to the Celtics. So we'll kick around some of the names who are left here. Real quick, want to shout out our sponsors here at the Garden Report. Check out Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use that code CLNS for 100% deposit match up to $100. Just pick two players, pick more or less on their projections, and you're off. It's our official daily fantasy sports partner. Women's basketball rolling along right now. You got baseball. Still some sports going on this summer. So have more fun with it with Prize Picks and use that code CLNS. Again, for a 100% deposit match up to $100. And the Game Time app, it's summer. There's a lot of events going on. No better app to get your tickets than Game Time. They're the best deals right up until, even a little after Game Time. Last minute deals is their go-to. Great views of your seats on the app here, which I always love. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase when you use the code CLNS. Terms apply. Again, CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply at Game Time. So, Celtics on the board, 30 here. Funny enough, Matt, I feel like if the draft goes the way it did with Dadier there at 29 and some of the other names we tossed off the board at this point, that just only reinforces in my mind the case to trade back here. Let some other team jump into the first round, get a guy they really like, and maybe get a pick or two in that 40-50 range there coming back, or future second beyond that. So I have a hard time imagining them picking here, but if they stay here, a lot of interesting possibilities. Jalen Tyson, who I don't think has worked out for them, at least according to the list I've looked at, is an interesting guy who's been connected to them on a lot of different mock drafts, including ESPN's at this point. I think he's a mold of a player that could really help them right away. But they're probably a team that's more willing to be patient on a guy who needs some time at this point too. Shooting, possibly something they need at this point too. You mentioned Tyler Smith. I guess a guy who could maybe be someone that teams reach on in the middle of that first round. Uh, he, if he's available at this point, would be interesting. Just someone that behind the scenes can work on his game, and the shooting's there, which they like. And that one would surprise me a little bit. But if they're going the big man direction, that's probably the most talent that would be left at this point. I think of a guy like Mogbo at that spot as well, who's been in their facility, who's worked out for them. McCullough, if they like a wing. So there's a lot of options here, but the tough part for Boston is you can probably move back and get any one of the guys that we're going to kick around at this spot. But is there anyone that stands out in particular for Boston at 30?
Yeah, I mean, I'm Jonathan Mobo's like biggest fan out there. So I saw he was mocked in the latest Bleacher Report this morning there at 30. He's been kind of consistently moving up. I think he'd be an awesome fit. He's like very switchable. I think he'd fit in with the Celtics system right away. Like really, really intelligent passer. Who also rebounds really well and like was second in dunks in the entire NCAA to Zach Edey, despite being only 6'6". He's like has a crazy catch radius. I would love to see him in Boston for sure.
Yeah, and the interesting part about him is I've done 3 draft preview pods at this point. His name comes up every time, and it's interesting because he's 6'6". It's a little small for a 5 guy if that's going to be his position. Shooting, will it be there for him? Didn't really take threes in college. So what kind of player, what kind of role do you see him becoming on a team like Boston?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky to figure out exactly how the role is going to work because he definitely is a 4 on defense. But he I don't think he has, so his backstory is he was like really short, like as a point guard all in high school. Had a huge growth spurt and is now a big. I think he can work in the dunker spot a lot. I have trust in him. He's still like a 70% free throw shooter, so I don't think the 3-point shot's a totally foregone conclusion that won't work out. When he was a guard, he would take like pull-up threes and stuff like that. So maybe there's some like lag and coordination to get to that point where like he's an outside shooter. Maybe the Celtics have patience to figure that out. But you can have him as like a rim runner, like cutting to the rim, like great, like bring the ball up in transition. He can kind of run some of the like delay, top of the key stuff that like Al Horford does, just kind of like going through, finding play finishers. But yeah, I think he's versatile enough. You can find a lot of like odd jobs here and there for him, basically.
Yeah, and he is close to 23. So is there room for growth? Is there upside there? That's another question. But the mold of the player, the passing ability, certainly is something I think will intrigue them, especially if Luke Cornett shakes loose this offseason. A guy who can do some high dribble handoffs and make some plays out of the roll. That's all really intriguing for them. And again, they can probably move back a little bit and still get him at, I don't know, 34. Blazers have a couple second-round picks that they could consolidate in that top 10 range. So they'd be a team to probably watch there moving up. I'm trying to think of another team with like multiple second-round picks. Maybe the Spurs really want someone there to get back into the first round. Jazz certainly have a million picks into the future. So some of those teams that are within striking distance. Dadier is really interesting there too. I know we had him at 29 to Utah. If he's still there at 30, would a team leap up and try to grab him? Seems like that's kind of his range there. So Mogbo, I don't think there's a lot of concern about him being gone at this point. Let's say he is. Who would be the backup option for Boston there at 30 or 34, wherever they end up in this range?
Yeah. Again, like if any of like just the guys that we mentioned, if any of them fall, if you have like Philip Howsky, Holmes, Terrence Shannon, Tyson, I like a lot. If any of those guys fall, I would not trade back and just like take the pick there. But as far as guys that we've talked about that would be available, I think like Baylor Shireman would be a really good fit just to give you some flexibility in case Hauser leaves. Another like ready to play, like great defender. I mean, great rebounder, okay defender.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would just see who falls, honestly. there's a lot of different like directions they could go. Yeah, McCullough you mentioned would be a really good fit. I think he's like got some Celtics in him. But yeah.
Who do you like in the second round? Obviously 54 would be tough to project. Going back that far, if that's where the Celtics end up picking in the second round. Let's say maybe they move up a little bit in the second round to grab someone they like, wait for someone to drop into that late range in the second there. Is there someone in that second round you think maybe a project, maybe someone who could drop pretty far in this draft? I know this is as tough to project of a pick as any here, 54, but second round prospects, who would you like to Boston at that point?
There's one name I haven't mentioned that I'm high enough that I'd be fine taking him at 30, and there's a chance that he falls all the way this far. I think is Oso Ighodaro out of Marquette, or they might like trade up for him a little bit. He's like such a Celtics player. He's like,
yeah, I know,
perfectly
right when you said
switchable,
it.
like smart passer, like can rebound, like protect the rim a little bit, has like a killer floater,
A talker, a
just
communicator too.
yeah, he's a Celtic in a lot of ways. So we see if they can reduce the temptation to take him. But yeah, who else we got? Trey Alexander would be kind of fun. Tristan Newton, I mentioned previously. He's just like a smart like ball custodian you can like throw out there pretty quickly. AJ Mitchell would be really cool. It's just somebody that can run a lot of pick and rolls for them as like a backup point guard. He's from UC Santa Barbara, so didn't play at the highest level of competition, but just really good at like slicing through traffic. Can hang in there defensively. Let's see who else. One like kind of deeper sleeper who I think might be available as probably will be available as undrafted free agent would be Dylan Disu from Texas. He's another just like really smart, switchable, can pass. His like developed an outside shot. I'm kind of really surprised he hasn't been talked about more as like a second round pick because he's like perfectly NBA ready. He just like had a couple of ACL injuries, which is probably reducing his draft stock a lot, or not. I think one ACL. I don't know, but just a very versatile player who I think would fit well in the Celtic system also.
Yep, and if they don't go Mogbo at 30, you could go the Enrique Freeman route late in the second here too if he's still there. Again, there's just so many guys in this draft who could go 50, 35, 30, 45. Like there's just a massive range on a lot of these guys, especially between rounds here. So I think some of the names we kicked around in the late first round, Shireman, Shannon, Dunn even, maybe he's there at 30, but doesn't really seem like a Celtic anyway with the offensive concerns. A lot of those guys, I think Filipowski too, who I would really like at 30 if he's still there, just because of his readiness to contribute. They need a 5 who's potentially ready to step in and play some minutes for them. Those guys, I think, seem more likely than not to me to be gone at that point. So I think we are talking about the Mogbos, maybe Dadier, if they want to try to even stash a guy if he's willing to do that. And then, some of these wings into the second round there. Jalen Bridges, too, someone who could probably fit with them. So a lot of names tossing around here. 2 nights. Are you a fan to the switch?
Sure. I don't know. I don't have a strong preference. It makes a little,
Yeah.
I mean, gives us more time to
gives us a breath, I guess.
Yeah. So.
Well, he is Matt Powers. Check out his work over at the Swish Theory. I'm sure you guys have a lot of content coming out leading up to and throughout this draft here.
Yeah, I put my big board out last weekend. We have our like consensus one dropping in a couple hours with like full write-ups and everything. We have like a huge defensive Zach Edey article. We had Ron Holland article, all kinds of stuff. So just check out theswishtheory.com.
So Edey's your favorite guy in this draft, huh?
Yeah. I think you shouldn't ignore his like historic dominance for NCAA prospects. I think he's gonna be really hard to cover. And like, if you can't throw a single coverage on him, like there's no other prospect like that in this class, just like the upside's too immense for me. I think like he's 7'4" and 7'10" wingspan and has good touch. Yeah.
That's a crazy draft story, him going from a guy who was slotted at like 50 last year to being potentially a top 10 pick here in this class and thriving in the NBA. So I'm looking forward to see where he lands. Again, another guy with a wide range there at the top of this draft. So that's the fun tonight. There might not be the Wembanyama's and Zion Williamsons of the world, but you do have a lot of potential surprises up and down the draft board here, as high as number 1. So we'll see starting at 8 o'clock tonight. Thanks again, Matt. Great meeting you. Great talking to you here this morning. And now it's time. Let's just see who's going to be there for Boston at 30, who's going to go number 1, and everything in between. The draft starts tonight at 8 o'clock. We will have a live show leading up to the start of the draft, and then we'll go live just before the Celtics start, going on the clock at 30 there, and we'll go right through the pick or trade or whatever they end up doing there at the end of the draft. It actually works out pretty well for us in terms of streaming tonight, start of the draft, end of the draft. So we'll be here. I think Jimmy Josue here tonight as well for everybody watching. And you can join us live tonight for our draft show. Thanks again, Matt. Good luck with all the coverage tonight, and we'll talk to everybody later tonight.